Welcome to Beyond Recovery, everybody. I am your host, Matt, and I would like to welcome to the show, Mayara. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh,
to be here with you.
absolutely. Thank you. I've been very excited about this one since we booked it. So yeah, super cool. We sort of have a mutual friends podcast. You were on the American Gypsy podcast, and they highly recommended you. And I looked up what you're all about. I was like, absolutely. So super excited to have you on. So thanks for taking the time.
Yes, absolutely. And I would like to use this opportunity to thank them also for connecting us.
100%.
People.
Very good.
Oh my gosh,
Shout out.
Out with them.
Absolutely. Shout out to them, and highly recommend their show. They do a really great job over there. So yes, American Gypsy podcast. In fact, I'm going to make a note to leave a link for their show in the notes. Give them a little bit of love as well.
Yes.
Podcast. Awesome. So lots to talk about with you today. So you are a sound therapist. You do it into holistic health and so forth. So we're going to unpack that and get into that. But before we do, I always like to give everybody an opportunity to do like a little bit of their origin story. Like what was your life path? How did you get on this path of becoming a sound therapist? What was your childhood? And as you know, I was reading your bio there, and there's definitely some things that will very much resonate with this particular audience, as well, as far as like substance issues and various traumas and all that. So I'd love to give you the opportunity to just take your time and really paint the picture about your life path up till this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So just before we get there, I want to kind of share with you guys a little something, because until we get to the sound healing, the holistic and all of that, I might be cleaning my throat a little. So just like to emphasize the power of doing things holistically, right? Sometimes I drop off the wagon in an area and my body shows me. So it was food. I started kind of like allowing, stuff to come into my diet that I don't do it usually. And subtle, little by little, it kind of escalates. And the way that my body shows me like, this is kind of much, like check it out what you're doing and stuff, it's allergies. I was staying with a couple of friends for a couple of weeks in California, and they have a cat, and my body was just like, no, that's not happening. So there was a lot of allergy, being activated. And I came back this past weekend and I did some sessions on myself with the sound therapy. And now I'm on the detoxing process. So I'll probably be, but it's this stuff coming out. So just so you know what's going on until we get there, like the importance of looking at our health in a holistic way, right? The mental, physical, everything involved matter. So anyways, but to start from the beginning, so I was born in Brazil, and I come from like a more poor background, but the biggest problem that we had to deal with, besides like the financial, was the mentality. Like the lack mentality creates this type of mindset that, you gotta step on people to get somewhere, or, there's not enough for everybody. That the kind of mindset that gets you to do things in this certain way. That's like, if you don't rush, and get it, it's not going to be enough, and all of that. So that created a lot of dysfunctionality, where I'm from. I could see that happening. I had no idea, because that was the norm, right? It was all over. So my father was an alcoholic. So the whole thing with the alcohol, it's, I believe, generational. And I believe it's directly linked also to this type of mindset, because it just makes you so miserable when you believe in those things, that there is not enough, and that you have to fight, kind of like step on other people, that kind of mentality, not of collaboration, but competition and all that. So the alcohol has been in the family for some time. And my father had a heart attack and passed when he was 37.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was only 4 and he passed. So he wasn't a person like with heart problems or anything like that. I don't remember hearing anybody in the family saying that, he was on medication for the heart or anything like that. But he was an alcoholic, and he was very aggressive, and he would show that aggression. So, I mean, your heart can't stand that for too long. There was not really much of caring for himself, like self-care or anything. but there was a lot of like bad food, you know, the alcohol and that aggression. And then you surround yourself with people that, you know, kind of like activate that aggression, and it becomes that mess, that chaos. And so it was pretty hard growing up without him, just with my mom, because like I said, coming from this more of a poor area back in Brazil, my mom was struggling a lot to raise my two brothers and myself. And so she was traveling for most of the time selling clothes. So that was a big thing. The city where I'm from in Brazil, like fashion and clothing, it's a big thing in the city. So she was traveling around in the area selling clothes. And so she was never home. So there was not a lot of structure as I was growing up. And then a lot happens when you are in a space like that the mentality is already like of lack and scarcity. And then there's not a structure for the kids and stuff. And it wasn't like, I noticed that I wasn't an isolated case, you know, like me and my friends, we grew up on the street, like playing outside, you know, doing our own thing outside. So anyways, there was like abuse going on, you know, physical, mental, sexual. And then when I started getting like close to the teenage years, 12, 13 years old, I joined the drinking people because it's just what happens. You know, the people are drinking around you, you hit a certain age where it's almost like the word that comes to mind, it's acceptable. You know, because I never saw, when I was growing up, I never saw like an 8-year-old drinking per se. But if you are like 12, 13, it starts, you know, you start going to the parties and, you know, and all of that. So I joined and I started drinking. And today, on the other side of everything, I look at alcohol as a tool that I could use back then, right? It was like an escape tool that I had. And that in a sense today that I don't need alcohol anymore, I almost look at it with gratitude, because if it wasn't it could have been something even worse that could have killed me, right? So it's interesting to me how, you know, everything has shifted after I started my healing process in that sense, because today it's not like I hate it. I almost thank it, you know, that it was there, and that I didn't get to that point like my father. It didn't kill me. You know, I used it for many, many years to numb everything, but it worked in a sense, you know, it kept me going, it kept me alive. So yeah, that was the beginning of everything, how I got into the messy addiction to alcohol.
Yeah. Wow. That's, I love that perspective that you have on it. It's almost like alcohol was like a teacher in some ways. Like you can look back on it and, or it was like, yeah, it had its moment that it was, would, you know, help you, I guess, or at least, you know, you could find out more about yourself from it. And I love how you look back on it with a much more accepting, you know, accepting energy to it, as opposed to, yeah, being like, okay, no, this is evil, stay away from it. I resent, I feel shame, I feel guilt about it. In fact, it's quite the opposite. So it's interesting take on it. And I love that. There's quite a few people around that I've talked to that it's one or the other. And to your point, I think the key word is like healing. Depending on where they are in their healing journey, they can look back on it with a much more full-bodied, you know, expressiveness to it, as opposed to this resentment because they are still feeling, you know, a little bit stuck from it, if that makes sense. So I love that, the way that you worded it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because it reminds me, I was in California training to do neurofeedback, you know, to read the activity of the brain and kind of work in specific areas of the brain. And I was doing it myself as the client to learn from the client's perspective, right? And it's funny because we were talking about that with my friends that do it out there. So we came across punk rock. And I used to listen to it when I was a teenager, right? Like I used to be within the group that, you know, were angry at life. And we would go out and we would have like the, you know, the punk rock parties that we would go to and dance and scream, and the lyrics, right? You can say all those swearing words and all of that stuff. So when I was doing the neurofeedback and my stuff was coming up from my childhood, you know, to be looked at, to be healed and all of that, This is one of the things that came up. I was explaining to my friend what is it that was coming up, like how could we, kind of use it. And I was recording also my journey. And then he asked me, he said, what kind of music did you listen to back then? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's like another thing to be
Yeah.
grateful for, right? It's like,
Right.
once I told him, I was like, well, it was punk rock. I could swear, I could scream, I could dance kicking and all of that. And he's like, imagine if you didn't have that to express the anger that you are suppressing from
Right.
people that we're abusing, right? So now
Sure.
it's another one. It's like I don't listen to it anymore. I'm not that angry, It's not.
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
like it actually. The
Yeah.
other, and then for us to do session, I need to watch something, listen to something. So I did watch some shows in session to kind of like for my brain to be trained
Mhm.
that now I can see that, and I don't
Yeah.
need to activate any anger. I can see from a relaxed point of view because there's no
Wow.
aggression anymore. There's not
Yeah.
none of that going on anymore. I'm fine. I'm safe. So
Mm.
anyways, but the point is that like I stopped listening to it. I didn't have like a need for it anymore in my adult years. And then it's interesting to look back and like, wow, this was so useful. Imagine if
Right.
I was suppressing all that anger that I could express through the music.
So yeah, very interesting. I love, yeah, the comparison with music. I and totally relate to it as well. I had like child in the 90s. So I was in a grunge scene, right? Very dark though to listen to. Like Kurt Cobain was a troubled individual. He killed himself, right? And there's a lot of that heroin use and everything in that scene. And man, it's like I have this nostalgic attachment to it. And to your
Right.
point, that's I was like a the exactly angry teenager. I was having a hard time expressing. My parents were divorced, so I was having a hard time expressing myself in in a literal way of just like verbalizing it. So to have like a more abstract way to express myself through music or like absolutely, yeah, no, that's really really great stuff. I'm glad you brought that up as well. Yeah, it's cool to look back and go, yes, I did need it at that time, and there was something good, because otherwise, where else would my energy have gone? Or to your point, it could have gone somewhere worse. I could have gotten into much harder drugs, for example. So yeah, super cool. I love that. That's really cool. Okay, so you're in your teenage years now. You've kind of gotten to like 12, 13 years old. You're starting to go to these parties. Where does your teenage years into like your early 20s? What's like that next stage of like the alcohol, drugs? Where did that life journey take you for that next stage of your life?
Mhm. So also starting in childhood, it was my desire to come to America. So which was kind of interesting because people would look at me like I was crazy, talking about leaving and living in another country, like being there probably for the rest of my life or at least for a lot of years. And I would work, save some money, go to the consulate, try the visa. It wouldn't work. I would try again and stuff like that. But there was this fantasy in my mind from watching movies from here that
Mm.
there was places that there were families and stuff like that that was loving, and it was different. It was just kind of like more grounded and more balanced than what I was observing in my environment. So I always had that desire to leave, to leave, to leave, and I always tried, and it took a while to work it out. But one of the things that I study with trauma is that, like, when you have the traumatic childhood, it's very hard to remember things from your childhood as an adult because we
Mm.
block stuff out. So it becomes this disorganized memory that my childhood before I started my healing process was a blank. Like I didn't have much. I could remember like one thing here, one thing there, but I didn't have like this overall about my childhood. It was kind of this blank phase of my life. And so doing my own healing, starting my own work and all of that, I came across all the information that kind of explains why, what was going on. And it's interesting because then my teen years were kind of similar because of the excess of alcohol. Like,
Mm.
because I started so early and my brain wasn't fully developed, it really affects the memory area of the brain. And so as I drank like hard alcohol throughout my teen years, I noticed that my teen years, it's kind of the same. I do remember some things, but like overall, I don't have that big picture of,
Mm.
over. But anyways, it's coming back to me as I do my work. It's coming back to me more and more. which sometimes it's very hard because what comes, it's like, you know, a new type of abuse that was there that I have forgotten because of, you know, everything. So teen years was pretty much that, was partying and drinking and trying to numb out the childhood. And to me personally, that's what was happening. Like throughout my teen years, I was quote unquote erasing the childhood stuff, right? To be able to have an adulthood, to be able to function, to keep moving forward. And so always wanting to come here. On my mid-20s, I was able to come to America. And it's when I started, you know, I started my own research and came across all the practices, the techniques that I use today. And it's interesting because I started researching, I was scared of my father's premature death. So I started researching by like heart conditions, you know, how can you work your way around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I came across the information that like we inherit the lifestyle, and so we develop the same diseases. And I started looking at it from that perspective, you know, epigenetics, like I can change the environment. I can change like, you know, the lifestyle. The genes, it's kind of hard, but then I come across epigenetics and I was like, even the genes I can like activate some and not activate others, depending on the lifestyle. Right. So that's when everything started. It was about mid to late 20s. I had just gotten here in America and you started looking into all this stuff to start reversing, you know, all the stuff done in childhood and teenage years.
That's beautiful. Yeah. It's such a cool story. So I'm curious to like, how immediate was it? Because I always hear things about like, you know, you can't, there's like I don't know how much I believe in it, but there's like, you can't heal in the environment that fostered the addiction. I mean, that's very black and white. I could see where it's very challenging too. So my question is for you, when you were able to very much change your environment and come to America, was it instantaneous? What was your transition from this old identity, right? And of the, you know, we're growing up in Brazil and all that, and then coming to America? And second question on that, was it as you fantasized, as you expected from the movies and all that? What was that like, that whole integration into this new life and lifestyle? Yeah. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I do believe that it is possible. Like, for instance, if I had stayed in Brazil to go through the healing, if I was there, but probably very, very challenging, very difficult. But I do believe that some people might be able to do it if they don't have the ability to leave the environment and have to figure it out staying in the environment.
Yeah.
I believe that it might be possible, but probably like extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Because even leaving the environment, it was extremely difficult. It wasn't that easy. It's not just about the environment. It's about your interaction with the environment, creating this person that you become, right?
Right.
So it's like, I was already dependent on the substance itself, regardless of the environment by now.
Sure.
Right? By now, it's like this chemical thing in my body and the emotional addiction to it and all of that. So it was hard. It was very hard. It wasn't instantaneous at all. It took some time. It took a lot of time. So, but the thing for me that was very helpful is information. Like the more I would observe information on, you know, what that was doing to me and the reasons why I was doing it, you know, like more scientific and spiritual and all of that, like the links of everything. Oh, because this happened back then. That's why, you know, I created this escape mechanism, this defense mechanism that, you know, come with me throughout my life, throughout my 20s, throughout my 30s. And I still have that defense mechanism, you know, within me. And so that's why, you know, someone's behavior triggered this type of emotion within me and all of that. So learning, you know, bringing in more and more information on how this whole thing was happening, like all the elements that were involved for me to have such behavior, because the behavior is just the end result, right, of something that's already happening. Like there's a root in there. So bringing in the more information that I could within, you know, how everything was happening, it was what helped me to create this awareness, you know, to every time I would go for the alcohol, I would have this awareness more of stopping and, you know, what's the emotion, what's going on, what's happening. And it takes some time, I did a lot of things to be able to help me. So kind of like one thing building on top of the other. One of the first things that I came across, because when I realized that the whole thing with lifestyle, I really desperately needed to change my lifestyle, I came across meditation. And it was tremendous, because meditation to me is still to this day, when I teach to my clients, I do consider that it's like the basis of everything else, because I believe that everything else, it's coming from this root that you can't really become aware of if there's this static, you know, in your mind. Like I was teaching these little girls to meditate the other day. They're very tiny, 8, 7, and 5 years old.
Oh, cool.
And one of them asked me, she's like, "Why do we meditate?" And I was like, "Oh, such a great question." And I was asking her, "Why do you brush your teeth every day? Why do you take a shower every day?" Right? And she was explaining to me like she has to have the personal hygiene, because if she doesn't do that, she's going to have problems, right? She's going to have problems with her teeth, she's going to have problems with her health and all of that. And I was explaining to her that meditation is the hygiene of the mind. You need to stop everything, let everything shh, right? So that you can listen. And she's like, "Listen to what?" And I was like, "Another great question."
Yes.
Because I was telling her, "You pray, don't you?" And she's like, "Yes." And I was like, "You're praying, you are talking to your creator. And then when you meditate, you are able to listen. And you listen and you understand the answers of whatever you were asking your creator, right?"
Yes.
So she was like fascinated, and she asks to meditate. It's like so cute. But anyways, coming across meditation was like huge to start the whole thing, because it brings this awareness of like, you're sitting there meditating. What is your body using to get you to get up? You know what I mean? Because our body is like so conditioned to things. So it can be like, "Oh, you have to do this thing, so you don't have time to meditate right now." Or you're hungry, or, you know, you're itchy here and there, and whatever it is that the body is bringing up, just sit with it. Right? Just allow it to be there. Don't judge. Just allow it to be there, and kind of like, what is this about?
Yes.
So through different modalities of meditation, I kept creating more and more awareness around my end behavior. You know, what was the beginning of everything? What was the root of everything? So yeah, it wasn't instantaneous at all. It took some time. It does take some time. It is a process that I'm still on. You see, now that I was doing the neurofeedback, like I was saying, there was a lot of stuff is still coming up that I was like, wow, I thought I was done with this.
Right? Yeah.
Not that easy.
I love that. So many, so much to comment on there. So, first thing that jumps out is like, man, kids are the greatest for like just asking, like you say, really good question, right? Yep. For an adult to just ask that, they would either be too, "Oh, well, that's too dumb a question, I can't ask that." But a kid's just like, "Why do we meditate?" Right? And then it's like, wow, that's actually a pretty damn good question. And I love your like the hygiene of the mind. That's literally the first time. I think you should trademark that, unless you've heard that somewhere else.
No, I heard it somewhere.
Oh, you did? Okay.
It might have been Dr. Joe Dispenza, because
okay, I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. And you know what, you touched on I love the idea that like meditation is the listening part. Like you're praying, and then this is your chance to listen, to stop and listen. Okay, and it's great. But yeah, you're right. There's I like the word allow and curiosity. You kind of imply, you know, there's the implication of like curiosity. It's like, okay, so why am I doing this? What is this behavior? And getting into the root of that. And it's just curiosity is one of the what I champion now is like one of my values, because curiosity is it gets rid of the anxiety part, the anxiety where you're kind of like stuck in these things are happening to you. If you're curious about it, it kind of takes the power back, and it has this like adventure theme to it almost, right? I'm like, okay, what is this? It has like kind of a fun twist on it. When you say curious, it's like a fun word, right? So yeah, I love that. And just the word allow is like really getting to me, resonating with me the last, like, I'd say 6 months specifically. Just allowing, it kind of goes into the theme of like surrender, right? Where it's just like allowing things to happen, as opposed to having that doer energy. It's like the yin versus the yang energy of like, I got to control, and, you know, it's achiever energy. And a meditation has allowed me to see the benefit of getting into that allowing energy. And like, but I tell you, when you said, you know, I got all these things to do, I don't have time to meditate. I'm just like, it's very challenging. I don't know how it was for you to go, okay, well, if you meditate, you'll get all those things done quicker. You'll have
Yeah,
fun doing it, right?
more
One is before
efficiently.
the other, right? So that has been very tricky. That is just my own personal relationship with meditation right now, as you know, in real time. So I
Yeah.
love how you brought that up. But excellent. And you said, okay, you're saying you're having some issues. You're definitely going down this deeper road. It sounds like you have this lifetime student approach to it. Like even now you're learning these new things. I'm like, oh wow, there's more to this. So yeah, what did it look like? When did you start getting into the sound therapy? We have like the origin with the meditation. Walk us into kind of what you're doing nowadays with everything.
Yeah. So I didn't answer your other question too
Hmm.
about like when I got here, how it was,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So that's an interesting thing because it's like when I was watching life somewhere else, I was a kid, right? And when I got here, I was an adult. So it wasn't as my fantasy because my fantasy was like how I was being treated, that I wanted to be treated like, with care and all of that, the way that I was watching the other kids here. However, when I moved here, I brought my 3-year-old daughter with me. So the
Oh,
way that fantasy has realized itself once we were here was me raising her the way that I was watching people do it here. And it's
cool.
so interesting because
Yeah.
even details that I would see, like, I don't have anything that come well, like maybe like even playing in a sport, with your kid and stuff like that, kind of like just watching them laugh and run after the ball and stuff like that. In Brazil, it wasn't a thing because, like I said, my mom was super busy, like doing as best as she could to raise us, right? So she was always traveling to be able to make like a bare minimum to be able to raise us.
Mm.
So me here playing ball with my daughter, doing something with my daughter like that, I would kind of like have this flashback of a piece of a movie in my mind, like, wow, here I am. But it was interesting because when I had that fantasy and that desire to come here was as the kid, right? And then here I am as the adult doing all of that to my kid, which is like, oh my gosh, fills my heart with so much love. So it's like, I really appreciate being here, like finally having had the opportunity to come and relocate and, restart this whole new lifestyle and all of that. So I'm very grateful for that.
Beautiful.
So yeah, and then from meditation, I came across a whole bunch of different types of meditation. I was really like I said, curiosity. I love that word. Like
Mm.
it takes us places,
Yes,
right?
it does.
So from that, I came across a variety of other things. Food, I'm very big into eating, responsibly for your
Mm.
health as possible. And that's a big thing with heart conditions as well. And because, my history is my father's heart attack, and I have a couple of strokes on my mom's side, brothers of hers and stuff like that. So I was concerned about the everything heart related. So I shifted the way I was eating. I was eating very badly. So I started clearing up my diet as much as possible. And as we're talking about, like increasing the awareness of what's going on, I started noticing results right away. Like my
Mm.
skin cleared up. I started losing the excess weight, and everything started shifting because I started clearing up my diet. And this is what I was talking about before on the beginning, that I'm still clearing up my allergy a bit. So I try to be very restrict with my practices, but it became too much. This is only what I eat, and this is how I meditate, and I can't skip a
Mm.
day, and this is this, and this is that. And I found rigidity in my practices, and that sucked because then you get worried about it, like when you have
Right.
this thing that will keep you from your practice, you're kind of like, I don't know if I want to do it because then I don't have time to do my practices and all that. And to me, it's like becoming a slave of your own practices. So
Mm.
I started shifting it. And it's like I do my practices as my lifestyle. So I eat clean, I meditate every day, I do yoga, I run, I drink tons of water. Water and tea, it's pretty much all that I drink. And it's great. It's not that I'm craving anything else and none of that. But then I took the rigidity out of it. And it's like,
Mm.
if I have, for instance, a podcast that is too early and I have to skip, 1 or 2 of my practices that I do in the morning, tomorrow I can go back to doing it again. You know, it's fine. It's not that much of a big deal anymore. So once I took the rigidity out of it, and this is why I'm saying that the process has no destination. It's a thing that you're always working on. You're always growing by observing and becoming aware of your behaviors, of where you're at and all of that. Because when I had a lot of rigidity in my practices, I mean, it works, you know, because it's kind of like it's discipline. And then you notice that, you know, you're very fit and this and that, everything comes out of it, right? But once I took the rigidity out of it and I made it okay to skip if I need it every once in a while, I tend to go to food. I don't skip my practices as much, but food, I tend to not be too restrict anymore on the way that I want to eat. And I allow things in, you know, here and there. But here and there, it's how it starts for me. And then because I'm always doing a healing something, you know, a practice or whatever, like I was doing the neurofeedback, and it brings up a lot of emotions. It brings up a lot of stuff. You want to escape, right? And food is acceptable. You can go for that, you know, sweet food that you don't really eat every day, or, you know, something. It's acceptable. It's not, I'm not going to go to alcohol. It's like, I'm done with it, right? I'm totally 100% done with it. But food is acceptable for you to go for, you know, piece of cake or what. Oh yeah, no, because I'm working through this thing. So I'm becoming more and more aware of, why am I going for that food? Is it to numb something that's coming up because of this new healing thing that I'm doing right now, like I was doing the neurofeedback? Or is it just because I want a piece of something sweet? And that's fine, right? That's totally fine. When I catch myself like, yeah, this is to deal with that sadness that's coming up, or that anxiety, or that whatever, like, you know, disappointment, whatever it is that the memory is bringing up, it's coming up, the emotion, and then I try to avoid to go to that food. But if I don't sit with myself and have that awareness and have the meditation going and all of that going, I won't see it. I'll just eat and not even know why, right? Not even know where is it coming from. Am I trying to numb a feeling, an emotion, or I just want a piece of something sweet? So the food is the thing that constantly I'm watching, you know, and just stopping myself. And so much so that when I stop watching it, something like this happens. My body brings up, you know, an allergy or something to tell me like, pay attention. So there's always something that's coming up. So anyways, for the sound healing, coming across all these practices and changing my diet and doing this and doing that, I came across sound as a form of healing with intention, right? Also, I work a lot with like exactly what I'm talking about with the food. What's my intention on eating this right now? So I work a lot with intention. And you started studying the effect that sound has on us. I mean, it's very simple for someone that has never come across sound as therapy, as healing. Think about a song that totally changes the way you're feeling, right? If you're super sad, you know that song that you can put it on, and you know, you might start even dancing, right? So we know that songs have this ability to change how we're feeling. How can that be? How's that possible, right? So I started looking into that, like how the sound waves hit us on a molecular level, like a cellular level, and affects how we are literally vibrating. So I do sound and vibration therapy. Some of the equipments that we use, it's the tuning forks that we use. Some of them, they don't make the sound. They have weights on the edge of them, and you strike and place them on the skin, on the person. You can feel the vibration traveling throughout your body and changing the way all the cells are vibrating and bringing them back into balance, bringing them back into harmony. So whatever the behavior that we're working on, that there's some dysfunctionality, some imbalance happening, we are bringing balance to the root of everything. We're bringing balance to all the molecules, all the cells in your body coming back into vibrating in harmony with each other, in balance. And so then you notice the results on the behaviors that we were talking about. I did sessions on myself, right? So I can see now the allergy coming out, which is lovely, right? Like see all the mucus coming out. But it's like I can see the healing happening. And we work with people with like mental processes, and they notice how much their mind are shifting in things, you know, whatever it is that you came to treat per se, depression, you know, anxiety, whatever it is. One of the feedbacks that I love is when people say, you know, what's interesting? I started being more regular with doing the sound healing. And now I notice that the person that used to trigger me like crazy with their behavior, they don't necessarily change their behavior, but I change my response. It doesn't affect me as much. I'm more grounded, I'm fine. And it's kind of like, well, you want to be like that? So be it, good for you. But it doesn't affect me as much. And I look at that as like, you are taking your power back, you know, because if other people's behaviors will dictate how you're going to feel inside yourself, it's like you have no power whatsoever. Imagine if they want to be stupid around you all day long. You're going to be pissed off all day long. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
So taking that back, right? Having that inner peace that people will behave as they will, and you are going to keep your inner peace. You'll be fine.
Beautiful. I love it. I love this stuff. I'm big into sound therapy. I'm a musician. So I've always been interested in, like you say, the power of song. And now I've progressed to the stage I've gotten very much into like the solfeggio frequencies and all that. So I want to talk to you about that. But before we do that, what have you found is like a sort of the minimum effective dose? Like if somebody was like, okay, I'm interested with the sound therapy thing. Oh, is that we suggest like start with, if somebody's like, and of course, keep in mind, a lot of people will be the same kind of thing as meditation. We're like, oh, I don't know if I have time for, you know what I mean? So 10 minutes, 5 minutes, what is like a minimum effective dose for sound therapy in your opinion?
Yeah, that's interesting. So just real quick, a comment on what you said about meditation. There's someone that said that they meditate 2 hours every day before they start the day, because it's just like, it's exactly what you said. It makes the day go just like efficient and, you know, balanced and nice. And they have this great day. And then they say, when I see that I'm like extremely busy that day, I make sure to meditate for 3 hours.
Oh, wow. 3
You know what I mean?
hours. Wow.
So it's like, you can see how the importance of it, because you think that this person's going to say, when I see that I'm like super busy, I try to do at least 15 minutes, right? And they say, no, and then I do even more. Because I'm able to deal with that busyness, right? With that crazy day that I have ahead. And I'm like, wow, I can't see that. So anyways, it's kind of the same thing. I teach that with meditation too, but I do tell people, like, if you won't have the time to do what you usually do every day, do at least a little bit, like a deep breath, grounding yourself, you know, before you open the door and face the world type of thing. So with the sound healing, the way we work, we do sessions, like we do about an hour sessions. It can be shorter. It starts getting shorter, actually, if you do it constantly, you know, if you start doing once a week or once every couple of weeks or something like that, with time, you notice that you start getting very balanced. And because you are getting very balanced and you are having a more grounded response to your environment, you are not catching on to so much stressors anymore. You are not allowing them in. So it keeps your balance. So people start doing like once a month or even like a couple of months or something like that to just keep that balance. But then the way you were saying, if people are going to do by themselves, maybe listening to something on YouTube or something that they downloaded somewhere or something like that, I would say this is very personal and kind of like, see where you are at. It always comes to mind, this guy that says, I do even more if I have a busier day, just so you can see the importance of it. You see, it's very important to keep ourselves like grounded and balanced within ourselves, not allowing the environment to affect us as much. So I would say, I mean, like 10 minutes to me, I would say it would be the bare minimum. Like, you know, because to me, it's like 5 minutes. It kind of takes you to just
kind of,
calm down, right? Just let everything kind of, and then you have at least the 5 minutes of like, it's kind of like the meditation of the stillness of it, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, that's great advice. That's, you know, funny they mentioned that. I'm a big, like 10 minutes a day. Everybody's got 10 minutes a day. Like, you know, it's like that's 1% of your day. If you're awake, say like 1,000 minutes, which is about whatever, 17, 18 hours, 10 minutes is literally 1% of your day. So if you don't have time for 1% of fill in the blank, meditation, sound therapy, Well, you must be a very, very busy person. But to your point, like, yeah, I love that. If it's busier, I meditate even more. I love that.
You
So
know, the busiest people are the successful people per se. They meditate and they make sure to make that time. You know
it's,
what I mean? So if
yeah,
you're not that busy, you can make 10 minutes for yourself. It's for nobody else. It's for you.
yeah, for sure. Now that meditation has gotten a lot more traction, especially over in like Western culture over here,
Mhm.
I find it, yeah, it's before it used to be kind of, the hairy fairy and the not for me, right? Where even the last, like, I'd say 5 years, it's really picked up some
Yeah.
steam. And yeah, you hear about like guys like Jerry Seinfeld has been doing it for years, like
Yeah.
the most successful in a lot of ways, like as far as like, money wise anyways, one of the
Yeah.
most famous comedians of all time, right?
Mhm.
And he's been meditating since like the 80s. So like, yeah, like to your point, there is a lot of mentor of mine is the exact same way as what you're saying. He does at least an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. And then, yeah, it's like has the whole mentality. If you have more on the go, meditate more. Right. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, really cool. It takes a little while to, try that on and figure out what works for you, which is, I think,
Yeah.
your message as well. Yeah. And when you're talking about like sound therapy and its effect on our bodies, I find like this is science that is incredibly interesting because it's even like DNA strands, like right down to DNA. Everything is like vibrating in our bodies, right?
Yeah.
So, and I love the word that you keep bringing up is balance. So, what that can do to you, and let's specifically. So, I just wanted to unpack a little bit of like the science about it, as far as like if you wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on in our bodies and how the sound therapy affects that. And then secondly, just the balance aspect, a little bit about like, there's like these different chakra centers in our body, the 7 different energies, like from your crown to your root chakra.
Mhm.
And there's these different frequencies that really collaborate very well with these certain like energy centers in our body, which is incredibly fascinating. So those are my two, like, I guess my main, main event questions that I have for you as far as sound therapy.
Mhm.
If you can touch on those, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So the method that I use is called biofuel toning. We are tuning the electromagnetic field of the body. Like everything that vibrates creates some sort of electricity, right? Which
Mm.
creates the electromagnetic field around it, with a positive charge coming from one pole and the negative charge. So we look at it in that way. We look at the body as being a battery that is charged with a negative charge coming up from the earth.
Mm.
And the positive charge coming down from the sun. And so it's also very similar to the Chinese medicine way of looking at healing in the body. Because like when you do acupuncture, for instance, you are putting the needles on places where there's blockages of energy, right? That the energy is meant to be circulating your body, but for some event, for whatever reason, there are blockages of energy in some places. So you put in the needles to release those blockages. So it's
Mm.
very similar to what we also do. We are also eliminating blockages of energy circulating in your body and within your field, right? That constant circulation of energy that's meant to be happening. So we do work with the 7 main energy centers that you are talking about. And we also work with the knees and with the feet because they also have very personal types of energy that are hold on to those areas. And I'll explain what I mean by that. And also a center of energy that is located above the head, about 10 inch above the head, and below
Mm.
the feet, about 10 inch below
Oh.
the feet. And those are the centers that we look at as connecting us to the earth and to the sun.
Okay.
So that we receive discharge from the sun, from the top one, and we receive discharge from the earth, from the bottom one. And it passes through our bodies, like the ascending and descending energy at all times, coming up and down in our main energy center, and coming out of that center, forming the electromagnetic field around us, and coming down from the below the feet, forming on the opposite direction. So always circulating. But then something happens that causes a shock, right? And some sort of energy gets stagnated in that
Mm.
spot, and it doesn't move, and it's clogging other energies to keep moving, circulating the way it's meant to.
Right.
With the sound wave, hitting that blockage of energy, it starts kind of like ingraining the sound wave with the energy itself, and it brings it back into circulation to keep because energy cannot be destroyed, right?
Right.
It only keeps circulating, becoming something new. It becomes like a new frequency, which becomes something new. So with the sound frequency from the fork, it grabs onto those blockages of energy to keep moving them and keep them recirculating. And it's so interesting. So another thing that I heard also is that how we all perceive reality differently, right? Like you and I can look at the same situation. Some aspects of that situation is gonna jump up for me and different ones for you. And they explain that the reason for that is because we have our own experiences stored within our field. This field, we consider that it's about 5 to 6 feet away from our body in all directions.
Wow.
And about 2 to 3 feet above and below. All directions, we have this field around us. And what they say is that our experience energetically, it's stored within this field. And so I had completely different experiences than you did. Hence, I see my reality through a different filter, which is my own biofield. So those experiences filtering my reality, another way to look at this from a psychological perspective is that we can only see what we are seeing in front of us in our reality by comparing it to experiences that we already had in the past, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I had completely different experiences than you, so I'm comparing my reality to completely different things than you are.
Right.
So I am a very grateful person because of everything that I have been through. So I look at little things and I'm so grateful. And a lot of people, when they are around me, they say it's fascinating to watch. Because for me, that's like, I don't even pay attention. But for you, it's like this. Sometimes I cry, you know, when a sunset or something, and they're like, dude, you're crazy, right? But look at this. I'm filtering that sunset through all the shitty things that had happened. So I couldn't be more grateful to be there experiencing such beauty, right?
Right.
So what happens is that these also can create the blockages that you look at everything from a specific like traumatic event that had happened, and that messes up with your reality, you know, like you are unable to see beauty in things like I'm mentioning a sunset, right?
Totally.
When you do a sound healing session, the sound waves come to that blockage of that trauma experience and carry that along, like to keep circulating, to, you know, bring it back into circulation to become something new. So if you don't have that trauma as the main thing right in front of you, that your vision is passing through it to perceive your reality, if you don't have that anymore, you can see your reality for what it is, just for what it is, not bringing your baggage to it, right? But just seeing the clear reality as is. And what I love also about this method that I'm very big into, it's the detachment from things, from interpretations, from outcomes and all of that. It's like you start welcoming life as it comes. You know, life will bring you things, great, welcome. Life will also take things away from you. That's great, welcome it out. You know, it's okay, because something new will come. You know, it's just clearing space for new things to show up. So a person, you know, leaves your experience, your life experience somehow, it's fine. You know, life will bring you something else to fill in that space. Things, people, situations, circumstances are supposed to be circulating. You know, nothing is eternal. Change is happening all the time and will keep happening.
Yes.
The more we get attached to something, to someone, to a situation the way it is, the more we suffer when life comes and takes that away, right? So I notice more easiness for people to be in that space of welcoming things and people as they come and allowing them to go as they go. And it's fine. It's all good. It's all your circulation of energy.
It's beautiful. I love that, man. That last like 10 minutes that you said is just beautiful. So awesome. So exciting to hear. And yeah, I love the idea. There's a couple things that jumped out. Like the first thing is just the idea that, yeah, absolutely, your experience that has maybe been stored as like a trauma that you've spent your whole life avoiding, or you don't even know because, like you say, you've repressed it. It's been, yeah, so it's either repressed or you're avoiding it.
Mhm.
And there's an ability to like get that energy moving again. And then to your point, you're not bringing that forward. That filter has then changed. And I love that idea. And I also love what you're saying about like, again, getting back to like allowing, there's like that lack of attachment, because attachment has sort of a collapsed distinction with suffering. Because if you attach something to something, that's where you're like, yeah, you get to sentimental when it leaves, you get sad when it leaves, and then
Yeah,
you're not seeing the new opportunity coming. So just
yeah,
having that clear, just the whole idea of like everything is just moving and allowing it and everything, just beautiful. So thank you. That last 10 minutes was amazing. So thanks for filling that in. It's beautiful.
absolutely.
That's great. You know what? I could talk to you for hours more. We're coming up on our time here. I would love to have you back on the show, though. I always invite all the guests back. And then that way, if you do have something that's coming up later on in the year, the door is more than always, well, you're always welcome back on the show. It's always open for you. So I very
Awesome.
much enjoyed our conversation today. Where can folks find you online, and where can we be found?
Yes, I really appreciate it too. Like it's fun. I love doing this. Yeah, let's definitely do it again.
Absolutely.
So I'm not super present on social media because I'm just doing things and all that, and I have a hard time actually with social media. I'm there because I need to be, but I do have a hard time kind of being present and everything. But I am on Facebook and Instagram, and there's the links on my website. You can go to my website. You can read a bit more of what I do, how I look at this holistic way of caring for our health, and it's Mayara Souza.com. Mayara Mayara, a little dash Souza.com, and you're gonna find the link for everything else in there. All the information is there. And if you want to reach out to, there's a contact me page that you can go ahead and reach out if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, anything. I would love to hear from you.
Perfect. Sounds good. I'll throw that in the show notes. And honestly, can't thank you enough for your time today. That flew by. That was an hour. That felt like 10 minutes. So it's
Yeah.
so it's great. Thank you for just sharing your story. So much great information, and got me, I imagine that anybody that listens to this is going to be very excited about sound therapy and just the idea of like, using a meditation as a tool to set yourself up for a better and more fulfilling life. So anything else left to say? Any other pearls of wisdom you like to share? Put you on the spot here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to thank you too, for the space, for the platform for me to share. I love talking about this stuff. I could talk with you for hours too. I have fun, explaining all this stuff that I have learned. And I love when I have the opportunity to share with people. So when it's something to close like this, I have this, I sometimes do speaking engagements too. And I like to close with this little challenge. And it's just like 3 things, very easy 3 things to help you to increase this sense of self-awareness of where are you at, what are the things that you are doing that's kind of like just to distract you from something that's there, something that's brewing within. So the 3 things are, first thing, prayer. And even though if you're not religious, that's fine. Prayer to me, it's this talking to your creator, just exposing to your creator where you are at, what you have going on. For me, it's a lot of gratitude. I really talk to my creator coming from a sense of like gratitude that I'm still here. The people that know me know a lot of my story. They say to me that I don't know how you are still here and you are kind of together. So prayer to me is this, it's kind of just thanking my creator that, for all the tools that came on the right time that I was able to use to get to where I am. And this, so, just that communication to your creator, whatever that means to you, just that open heart communication to your creator. Do that for like 2 minutes and then meditate. Even if it's just a few minutes, like 2, 3, 5 minutes, that's fine. If you are not a meditator, at least a little bit after you do this open-hearted talk with your creator and just see what comes up. And it does not mean that something will come up right there in that meditation. But what it means is that that meditation is doing that hygiene of the mind and clearing up the static out of the way so that you can listen what's going to come. And it can be when you're showering later or whatever, like driving, you know, anywhere later, because you did that meditation and clear up the mind a bit, something might come up. And the third thing is journaling. Whatever comes up, you know, thoughts, ideas, whatever it is, put it on the paper, like unedited, just let it come out. Because the journaling for me, it's like you have that ability to take a look at yourself from a whole different perspective. You know, the things that are going on within the mind, sometimes they happen on the background and we don't even know because we have no way to kind of perceive them if there is no awareness, right? So when you start journaling, if you get into the flow, you're going to put something on the paper that sometimes you look at it and you're like, wow, I had no idea. Right? So I would say like maybe for 30 days, you know, do a talk with your creator for a couple of minutes, meditate for a couple of minutes, and journal for a couple of minutes for 30 days, but try to do it every day. You know, it's going to take you just a few minutes each day. And then let me know what happens. Send me an email. Let me know what you noticed after the 30 days. The emails that I get are fascinating. Like, you know, all the changes on perspective that people notice after some time doing this. It's easy, you know, it's free, it's easy. And you do notice a lot of self-awareness coming into your life. It's awesome.
Love it. I'll take you up on the challenge for sure. I will email you. So it'll be, I guess, June 17th or 18th or so. I will email you. And and is this personal preference? Do you do it in the morning? Do you suggest doing it in the evening, or is it sort of dependent on the person?
Yeah, so this is one of those things that we were talking about before. Of course, you got to figure out what works for you, but I do give preference to all my practices in the morning because I have tried to do it in another times throughout the day, and life just happens, right? I get busy, and then, you know, someone call, and there's this thing, and there's that other thing, and this and that and that and that. When I see it's like nighttime, I'm tired.
For sure.
I can still do it, but I don't feel like it is as efficient as the morning ones. I'm fresh, you know, just woke up. So I like the morning like a lot better to do these kind of things and then just deal with life, you know, throughout the rest of the day. But at least you are done with your own personal things. You care for yourself first so that you can show up 100% to care for others throughout the day.
There we go. That's perfect, actually. That's a great way to end off there. Mayara, thank you so much for your time today. And we'll definitely have you back, and I will send you an email after the 30-day challenge with my my discovery.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt, for inviting me. I appreciate it. Had a lot of fun. Let's do it again.
You betcha. Thank you.